Okay, so we're going to make ourselves some pecan nut muffins, mini muffins. And now I have to tell you, I'm usually not one for tiny little muffins or tiny little things, and I generally don't play with my food. But today I'm breaking all the rules. So we are going to make a simplistic muffin. It's the savory almost, meaning it's just not sweet. So it's not a muffin that you would think of as dessert. It is the kind of thing that, you know, is perfect for a tea time snack, or maybe for breakfast, or if you just wanted to have it just, you know, as a snack. So the first thing we're going to do is get our bowl, and we are going to put in 2 cups of firmly packed brown sugar. And we're basically going to cream butter. So I'm putting in, this is room temperature butter. It's a half a cup, 4 ounces, 8 tablespoons. And we're just going to put that in. And by creaming it means we're just going to work it into our sugar. See, it's really soft. You really want that. Not melted, but soft. There we go. And we're going to work our butter. Just going to mix it together. Now, if you are working with someone else, or if you have some, you know, an extra hand, or unlike me, 4 or 5 extra hands, or like me, 4 or 5 extra hands today, as I have my little ones here, which is part of the reason why I'm making all of these bread products. You can preheat your oven to 400 degrees, and you can spray your bowl. Now, you can either grease your bowl with butter. I recommend butter, but if you're feeling not up to that, you can also use a spray. Now, if I were using larger muffin tins, I would probably go ahead and do the butter, but since I'm doing mini muffins today, I am going to spray my muffin tin as well when it's time. So I've creamed my butter and my sugar, and I'm going to add to my butter and sugar 1 egg. It gets brilliant at this point because you're just kind of putting in one ingredient after the other, almost in a dumping fashion. It's great. And I'm going to add to that a cup of milk. I'm going to go ahead and mix those together. Now this is one of those one of those recipes where it's almost like by the time you've assembled the ingredients, you're pretty much done. And so this is the reason why I'm not using a mixing bowl, or you know, why I haven't taken out any heavy machinery, because it's muffins and I don't want to overwork anything. All right, so I have I'm going to need 2 cups of flour to add to this. I'm just going to measure that aside, and I'm going to add my baking soda to it. And just mix that in a little bit. Now, baking soda is a chemical leavener, so when it comes in contact with water, it's on at that point. And you really want to make sure that you're, you know, pretty much done with your ingredients and you're ready to go. So I've got some pecans here. And I'm going to chop those into some smaller pieces, or if you want, you can just use chopped pecans. I just kind of like to hold my knife and then put the palm of my hand on top of the knife and just rock back and forth a little bit. And I find that at least keeps the nuts from jumping all over the place. Now, I'm not going to chop them really fine. I don't really care for really fine nuts, but you're welcome to do that if that's your preference. Like I said before, these muffins aren't very sweet, and if I were doing maybe a sweeter muffin, maybe I would want them to have smaller pieces, but with the larger muffins, more savory, I kind of like the extra texture, the kind of meatiness that is in the larger pieces of pecans. So I'm dumping those in, and then I'm going to start adding my flour. Here we go. And I'm just going to go a little bit at a time. I don't want to over incorporate because I don't really want to have to keep stirring very often because then that'll overwork the dough. and make my muffins tough. And when you're doing mini muffins, you really want to make sure that you don't overwork your batter. And ultimately, when this goes in, it's going to look lumpy and kind of like, are you really sure that those are finished? And they're finished. And if you've managed to stir these until it's completely smooth, you've overworked your muffins, and they're going to be tough, dense, chewy, not in a good way. So we're just going to incorporate this until I don't have so much white. This is a little bit too lumpy, but not much more. I wouldn't give it too many more stirs. It's starting to come together. And once it's all looks like the top, the sides, this kind of lumpy consistency. I can see the nuts. There's still a little bit of flour. I can actually see the flour on the outsides, which is perfectly fine for this recipe. I know I'm done. So there's still a little flour. It's definitely lumpy. Not everything is perfectly incorporated. And that's when we know we're supposed to stop. All right, so I'm going to set that aside. I've not sprayed my pan. So I find that with these mini muffin tins, it ends up being about 1/8 of a cup. And if I go ahead and spray my measuring cup as well, I can kind of just scoop them out. And that goes a little bit faster. Or if you have like a cookie scoop or something, a smaller one will usually work. Or you can just spoon it in. It's about 1.5 tablespoons. Now, these muffin tins, you actually want to fill till almost the top of the muffin instead of halfway. And as I fill these in, I'm going to dot the top with a pecan. That's what I meant by I usually don't play with my food. I definitely usually don't go about filling tiny little muffin tins and putting them aside, but you know, they're pretty and they're fun. And it's not very often that you have a savory muffin. Now, here's an interesting thing about this particular dough. You could stop, say if you wanted to make these in advance, you could make this dough, sit it in your refrigerator, it'll keep for 2 days. You can even fill your muffin tin and then leave it in your refrigerator if you have guests or something and you think, I would like them to have muffins, or maybe you just really like yourself and you want to give yourself some muffins in the morning. These actually taste better if you let them rest in the refrigerator overnight. So, and then if you bake them off and then let them cool, they freeze beautifully. So this is all around the kind of recipe that I like, since this batter will make you about 36 to 42 mini muffins, so you'll have plenty of them to do with what you wish, or a little over about 14 or 15 regular size muffins. And if you're doing that jumbo bit, you're only going to get about 6. All right. Now, I'm not so neat here, and it doesn't really matter, but if you're a person who cares, you can just kind of wipe around your rim there so that it doesn't bake quite on. These don't stay in the oven long enough for that to be a real issue, but the big glob is a bit much because I'll have a weird deformed muffin, and yeah. All right, so I'm going to put these into bake as soon as I can get my little nuts on top. There we go. Wouldn't want anybody to be without a nut. I think as a kid, I spent a lot of time eating pecans. Nearly everybody I knew had huge pecan trees in our yard, and they were everywhere. We used to use them for mulch in the yard. They were that much just around, just bothersome. So it's almost phenomenal to me to think of the fact that they're kind of precious now. Who knew? Much like these blackberry bushes at my house, which are a weed and are driving me crazy. And then I go to the grocery store and buy the cultivated kind. All right, so I'm going to put these into the oven and bake them off. And then when they are done and I get them out of the oven, they will look like this. Nice baked muffins. Let them cool. You want to pull them out and put them on a wire rack to cool. And then you have your cute little muffin snacks. Those lovely. There we go. All right, pecan nut muffins.